Hello everyone and welcome to part 3 of the Item Toolkit FMECA module for performing failure modes effects and criticality analysis based on the MEAL standard 1629A, as well as functional safety analysis based on the IEC-61508 and ISO 26262. In part 1 and 2, we created a new project and a new FMECA system and populated this with blocks, components, and failure modes. We assigned failure effects to the next level and all the way to the system level, and finally we assigned severities to our system failure modes or system end effects. We also looked at completing our data entry for the IEC-61508 by assigning diagnostic tests and assigning our system modes to safe or dangerous failure. Here in part 3, I will show you how we would make the data entry for the failure modes and effects easier, and how we would use FMECA libraries to assign failure modes automatically during the transfer from prediction and/or when entering the data manually. FMECA analysis is very highly dependent on making sure that your failure mode or effect descriptions are consistent without any spelling mistakes or lowercase uppercase. The software algorithm compares the data entry to all existing data entries, and if the phrase or description entered is the exact same as an existing one, it will treat them as one and the same, but if there is a slightest difference, it would treat them as different and therefore additional failures or effects. In order to keep our manual data entry to a minimum and avoid such mistakes, Item Toolkit offers the use of a phrase library. The phrase library feature allows the user to either import a list of well-known and used phrases for this process or save them after typing them in. Let's first explore how we can build a phrase library, and then I will show you how to import a list of phrases from a text file. Let's open a prediction system, transfer it to a FMECA system, and then add some failure modes. I will show you the process again by right-mouse clicking on the prediction and selecting the Start Transfer To, and then selecting the top project node and right-mouse click Option Transfer here, selecting the FMECA and transfer and link and include components. Now we have a new FMECA system in our project and can take a look at a component and add failure modes manually. When we are typing data for any parameter within the FMECA module, whether it is a description, notes, or failure mode descriptions, etc., we notice on the toolbar a red and a green letter P, which stands for phrases. Let's now add a new failure mode for this capacitor and type in a phrase or a failure mode description. Let's type in short electrical. As we know, this particular phrase or failure mode description is going to be used for other components within my system. We need to be able to select this exact same phrase, spelling uppercase, lowercase, and this is where you use the red colored letter P to save this phrase in the library for future use. If I now select the second capacitor in my system and add a failure mode, I can now use the green colored letter P to select one of the existing phrases in my phrase library. Now we can see that the phrase we saved earlier is available for selection. Once we select it, then the failure mode description will be filled automatically, and we can move on to set the apportionment and other parameters. Now let's look at importing a list of commonly used phrases so that all our work would be consistent with other colleagues working on the same or similar projects within our organization. To do this, we would simply bring up the phrase library via the green colored letter P, and then we see an option for import. When we click on this option, we are able to browse on our system or network drive to locate a text file. The requirement for this text file is to have a single phrase up to 255 characters long on every line that you wish to import. Let's select the Failure Modes Library text file, which is installed in the Item Toolkit Examples folder, and click on OK. All lines within this text file are imported one by one and treated as a new phrase. Now, when we are adding or updating any data to our FMECA system, we can access this phrase library. Let's select another capacitor in our system and select a failure mode from our phrase library. We click on the green colored P and search for a particular phrase by typing in the first or the first few letters of our phrase and click on the drop-down list to filter all our phrases that start with these letters. Let's say we are looking for short electrical. We would type in SHO and then click the drop down. Now the list is filtered for selection, and I can see the phrase short electrical that I was looking for. When I select this phrase, this will be entered into the field that I'm focused on, in this case the description for my failure mode. Let's now select another capacitor and enter failure modes and effects to the next level. Let's add a failure mode for this capacitor called short electrical and get this from our phrase library. Click on the green letter P and filter short and select short electrical and assign 50 for the apportionment. We then add a second failure mode and click on the green letter P and filter for open and select open electrical with apportionment of 10. Let's assign now add an effect for our first failure mode short electrical. We select the failure mode short electrical. Click on the add effect button, then click on the green letter P. Type and enter to filter the list and select intermittent operation. Let's do the same for this failure mode, and this time filter for loss and select loss of output. Let's now do the same for another capacitor with the same failure modes and see how these are combined. So, once again add a failure mode for this capacitor called short electrical and get this from our phrase library. Click on the green letter P and filter short and select short electrical and assign 50 for the apportionment. We then add a second failure mode and click on the green letter P and filter for open and select open electrical with apportionment of 10. Let's assign now add an effect for our first failure mode short electrical. We select the failure mode short electrical. Click on the add effect button, then click on the green letter P. Type and enter to filter the list and select intermittent operation. Let's do the same for this failure mode, and this time filter for loss and select loss of output. We then notice an advisory message in both cases, where the exact same spelling and uppercase was identified and combined at the next level. Let's now look at the next level block and view the failure modes at this level and the causes for these modes. As we can see, these failure modes for our block were caused by two different components with the exact same effect. The same goes for the next failure mode. This is the way the software keeps track of exact same failure modes and effects, and the use of phrase library for data entry is very highly recommended. Let's now take a look at FMECA libraries and how we manage and use predefined failure modes for existing or new projects. As we learned in the Prediction Module Meal Handbook 217 series of tutorial, projects and libraries within Item Toolkit can be opened at the same time, and the user can copy-paste between projects and libraries. This makes it very flexible if the user decides to start their project, build their predictions and FMECA systems, and once complete, save their project, as well as copy and paste their systems into a new component library for future use. Just like projects, libraries can contain any number of modules, blocks, components, gates, events, etc. These libraries can be built first and used for new projects or created from existing projects. Let's open an existing library to demonstrate the use of libraries for both prediction and FMECA. This library that I'm about to open is installed with the software installation in the Item Toolkit folder examples. File, Open Library. Select the library called DemLib. Once opened, we see this library contents are in a new window in the middle of the screen. Let's browse through this library and see the different modules and components. As we can see, these components in the prediction module all have part numbers and descriptions, as well as predefined physical parameters. Let's now select the FMECA module in this project. As we can see, the failure modes for each one of these components have been assigned along with their apportionments. Let's now close this library, open a new project, and load this library into memory as described in the Meal Handbook 217 tutorial series. New project, and here we see an option for Library Lookup Manager. When we select this option, see a new window where we can select any desired library and load the contents into memory. Let's select the library that we just looked at and load this. We see the number of blocks and components that have been loaded into memory, and now we can start to build our Meal Handbook 217 system by first adding this system to our project and then add just one block and two capacitors and two resistors. Currently, when we look at the general parameters, these capacitors and resistors have no part number, and all other parameters are set by default, such as description, physical parameters, etc. On the General tab, we see a search button next to the part number data entry. When we click this, we see an option for search library. Let's select this, and now when we use the drop-down for this particular capacitor, all the component type capacitors in the library will appear in this list. We can filter the particular part number we are looking for by typing in the first few letters, or simply select one from the list. The same goes for the resistors. Let's go ahead and select part numbers for all four components, and check the general and physical parameters. As we can see, these parameters have now been updated with those from our library. Now we are ready to transfer our prediction system to FMECA. Let's right-mouse click on this system in the project window and select Start Transfer To, and then select the top node of the project window and select Transfer here. We then select FMECA, Transfer, and Link and include components, and this time we will select the option to look up part number in the loaded library. Now we can see a new FMECA system has been added to our project, and when we expand our FMECA system, we can see that the failure modes for our components have been assigned automatically from the contents of our library. All we would need to do now is to assign the effects to the next level, as these might be different from one project to another depending on the parent block or subsystem. I hope you fully understand the importance of using libraries for data entry, especially when it comes to the FMECA module, as this will ensure the integrity of your data entry for new and existing projects. I hope you have found this part 3 of the Item Toolkit FMECA module useful, and in part 4 we will go over the import-export features for the FMECA module, which is very useful when it comes to making multiple changes to your data rather than making those changes manually using the software.